Listen. Short story long.
Welcome.
It could take your whole life.
Preach.
Develop clarity.
Second, patience.
If it scared you, you should probably do it.
Whatever you think you don't have, you have something else in its place.
Listen. Short story long.
Go, Woody, go.
Preach.
Listen.
Welcome.
What's up, man?
How you doing?
Welcome to the pod.
This is awesome, man. This is a cool new experience for me.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, that's part of the reason why I'm so excited, because I'll tell the story of where we met, but we met the other night, and you are, I don't want to hate on anyone, and that's not what I'm trying to do, but you're not one of these like Instagram guys trying to sell like an online program. Like you're trying to figure out how to start using social media to market yourself, because it is time for you to spread kind of what you know on a bigger scale. And you did a book that's going to be coming before too long.
Yep, coming out 6 months. Yep.
There you go. So you're getting to that point, but I caught you when you're just a guy who does what you do for real.
Yeah.
Not for the followers.
No.
This is your life.
Yeah.
And it feels so, in this day of everyone having a personal brand, it feels so cool and so real and so whatever. So thank you for coming in and doing it.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting for me is I don't even know who those other people you're talking about are.
Yeah, that's good.
You know,
stay pure as long as you can.
And so I'm learning a little bit more, but now I'm in this unique window of time where I mean, I think for the audience, I come from the world of sports, and so I would be a, expert in and around the field of mindset, advising, strategy, sports psychology, mental conditioning in that world. And sports seems really big.
Yeah.
And it is for the head coaches and for the athletes who are the consumer facing element of sports.
Yeah.
But for those of us who serve and support those people, it's very insulated. Mm-hmm. So even if you're with the biggest and best teams and programs for many years, you're a unique value proposition. So your job is, so for 10, 12, 13, 14, the last years, if people said, well, who are you? I'd say I'm an intern for Reebok. Yeah. Because what the fuck does it matter what other people outside the program at Alabama or Georgia or Florida State or Special Operations Command, all that matters is the people I work for.
Yeah.
So there's nothing really to prove beyond that.
Yeah.
But if you want to sell a book and you want to take a step out to impact more people, it does matter.
Yeah, you got to play the game. And there's a lot of people, don't get me wrong, not everyone who's out there doing it is fake or is whack. Like there's a lot of people with real information that have learned how to do a really good job of personal branding. There's just also a lot of bullshit.
Right.
And
but
whatever,
you would be one of those people. You came from Ohio and then you navigated and figured out a way to find an audience that's looking for something that you have the value proposition for
sure. And
then and the credibility because of your company.
Yeah. Thank you, man. So to start it off, I want to do this. So we met the other night at dinner. We had a dinner with our buddy Frank, who's in the room. Thank you,
Very
Frank, for hooking this up.
Very
handsome, Frank.
Handsome. Frank.
So we had a dinner with everyone that Frank works with, and Frank brought you along as like a special little treat for the group. Yeah. And he said, "Hey, man, this guy's inspired me a lot. I came across him. I wanted him to just share a couple words about what he does and what's going on." So the first thing that I'd like to do, I'm taking a bit of an unconventional route here, but is before I get into exactly what it is that you do, you shared, no, that's the wrong way to go about it. That's the wrong way to go about it.
Okay.
You teach, tell me what you do first.
Yeah.
Tell me some of the people that you work with.
Yep.
Explain it to me, because it was really interesting when you came out the gate with that.
Yeah. So basically, raised on the West Coast, went to school in Southern California at Occidental College. Went in from there to playing professional soccer as well as teaching. So I was a high school teacher in LA Unified School District, which was like the Peace Corps with pay. Mm-hmm. It was a different world. I ended up navigating to Florida with my girlfriend at the time. She was a tennis player from USC. We wanted to teach in South Florida. My buddy got traded to the Miami Fusion.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to stay in a climate sort of similar to Southern California. I'd been up in the mountains hiking at Angel's Crest and was chased by a bunch of cholos.
Yeah.
And my mindset was like, get me the fuck out of LA, man.
Yeah. It only
and
took that one experience.
No, I had a lot of them because I was
Okay.
teaching a lot of the
Yeah.
you know, in that world. It was cool. And teaching in LA Unified was Harvard for classroom management.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up quick. You know, I went to great prep schools, and Occidental was where Obama went to school. I mean, it was a great school. So that was a grow up time for me. I mean, I'm 20 years old. I'm teaching all these kids from Central America, South America, Armenia. And, you know, I learned all of a sudden, you know, like not everybody is going to college. Not everybody, you know, people are on different journeys.
Yeah.
People are on different paths. So we moved to South Florida, and I'm literally at that point, truthfully, drama like a teacher and a coach. And I liked the aspect of educating people, but I did not like teaching social sciences.
Yeah.
And I had my my master's degree, and so I'm at a coaching clinic, and I go to Bradenton, Florida, to the Nick Bollettieri Academy.
Yeah.
And
for the record,
Yes.
man, you told me yesterday, watch this documentary on Showtime called Love Means Zero about Nick's tennis academy. And all I'm saying is, everyone, if you're interested in stuff like this and this type of podcast, watch that documentary. It is incredible. I had no idea what it was until I watched
and who
that.
he was and who he'd influenced, right? And
Yep.
it's important. I thought it'd be good for you because he had a big influence on me.
Yeah.
You know, so I go to this in Bradenton. 80% of the people in the town are over 70 years old. It's where Tropicana's from. It's agricultural business. But inside there, for many years, the best tennis players in the world were being developed in kind of like this social Darwinistic environment. There's 60 courts. You got to win to move to court 59.
Yeah.
You got to win to move to court 58. Well, anyways, this influencer, Mark McCormick, I mean, you talk about influencers, right?
Yeah.
Mark was an average golfer who decided his buddy Arnold Palmer, who was his best friend, was struggling to make money off the golf course. And he said, hey, man, what if I stop playing golf and just help you manage your opportunities off the golf course? You don't have to pay me, but just pay me a percentage of whatever you make. So Arnold Palmer goes from $60,000 in the early 60s to $400,000. That was the birth of the sports agent. And then Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus, and all these people. Well, he becomes the first Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
And he buys this sports academy in the 90s as a way to develop. A lot of people probably don't know this on this podcast, but there's a place in Bradenton, Florida that's 600 acres with thousands of athletes, and it's Hogwarts for athletes.
That's the IMG?
The IMG Academy. And so I went there at 24 years old in 1999 as just a high school coach going to a coaching clinic for credit hours.
Yeah.
And once I got there, I was like, I'm fucking going to end up here.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to end up here. And I heard the director of sports psychology speak in a way where you guys heard me speak. And I said, that's what I need to be teaching.
Yeah.
And my dad had been in the industry. You know, my dad was one of the early authors of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And I'd been raised, and he worked with Boeing and Starbucks and NASA. So I knew the educational platform of helping great get greater, good get better, helping people have challenges, maybe learn how to get out of their own way.
Yeah.
And I was raised sort of in that environment, but I'm very independent. I want to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing. I love how, like, because you did this at dinner too. You lightly kind of cruise over the Chicken Soup for the Soul thing, you know. But I think what's so fascinating about it is that there's always been. We'll get into this more later, but I think that one of the biggest problems with this mindset stuff and stuff like that is just people thinking it's bullshit, or people thinking it's like hippie stuff, or like, can you really change, like a positive attitude, blah, blah, blah. And I think that probably coming out of a household that already kind of believed in that stuff had to be so helpful for you to then go on to the next level and really embrace this next level of stuff. You know what I mean? And I feel bad for the people that are, and I was that way. I was that way when I was younger, but I feel bad for the people that are raised in a way or around a group of friends in a way that they do not even believe that some of this stuff is possible.
Sure. And what I would say to that is you got to respect people's right to not believe.
Yeah.
And you got to respect people's right to be average, and you got to respect people's right to think in a stupid fucking way.
Here's what bums me out, though, is the people who are average but don't want to be. So the people who want to be average, I
would
like
agree.
them.
Yes.
You're great.
You had to respect that.
Do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want.
The people that are pissed off and bitter and entitled and blah, 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 but do not embrace the next step, they just want their way to work, are the people that piss me off.
Right. And so, but I think that there's sort of a unique way to look at this, and it kind of goes back to my origins. But look, at 4 years old, they started playing Zig Ziglar and Brian Tracy and Norman Vincent Peale. I mean, I listened to these audio tapes by my bed. My mom and dad would come down and sit and read affirmations and all these things to me. And even growing up there, and I went to, a really good high school and college, but it wasn't till, so I was raised in an environment where I should be educated exactly like the aspirational way you're looking at. I want people to be this way. Yeah. But I'm 18 years old. I'm in Pasadena, California. I'm going to college. I finished my basketball season. And truthfully, I viewed anything around the architecture of psychology or personal development as optional. Yeah. Like today I'm going to think this way and I'm going to help myself. Tomorrow I might be an asshole and I might do this other way. Yeah. And the problem with psychology is it's not viewed like it's human performance cousins. Yeah. Take nutrition, for example. If I eat less, I can lose weight. If I eat more, I could gain weight. If the timing of the way I feel or the nutrients that I bring in at 8 o'clock at night or 6 or 4, or I have 6 micro meals, we see change, right? Physiologically, if you're skateboard, if you have a way that you train that is your explosiveness, or for half pipe, for vertical, for ramp, for street skating, you see changes. You go out in a period of 2-3 weeks and you're like, fuck, I'm more explosive. Like I'm a better whatever, Psychologically, we don't see it that way.
And that's just a shame.
But it's the truth. But it's like gravity. We don't see gravity. Yeah. But we accept it. Yeah. I studied gravity in 10th grade, but gravity was impacting my ass way before 10th grade. Yeah. Yeah. So you got to get to the point where you understand that yes, you don't see it, but it's every bit as real as eating more or eating less. Yep. And for me, I didn't believe it. And my dad, truthfully, was an incredible teacher. 9/11 happens. He addresses the whole state of Washington with the governor. I mean, so I get sick. I rush to the emergency room in Pasadena. I'm there for 8 hours. In 1993, I get sat down into a room and 4 doctors come in. I'm not thinking anything. I'm just whatever, 18. And at that point, they tell me, based on my white blood cell count, they think I have cancer. Jesus. So I remember just at that, I didn't even know what cancer was because there wasn't, like now we're an informed society about it, right? Jimmy V Foundation and all the pink ribbons and the NFL and all these things. Well, so I have 3 friends that are waiting to pick me up. I've been here 8 hours and I walk out and they're like, hey, is everything okay? I'm like, it's fine. And the doctors had told me to fly home to get a second opinion. And they said, don't tell your parents on the phone. No mom or dad wants to hear this type of news about their 18-year-old on the phone, so fly home and tell them. Well, I'm scared, but I'm just thinking, okay, I just got to get home. So I go to Burbank, California. I get a flight 8 o'clock at night, fly to SeaTac Airport at 11 o'clock. I land, this is 1993, 1994, so there's no cell phones. Mm-hmm. So I have a calling card. Mm-hmm. And my parents, I didn't tell them what was happening, I just said I needed to come home. They didn't know. They overslept. Uh-huh. So, and I have the calling card, and the calling card doesn't work. Unless they answered, it doesn't work. So I'm stuck at SeaTac Airport for 6 hours.
Thinking you have cancer.
Baggage claim 19, by myself with a backpack. And I tell people all the time, and that's 25 years ago, I tell people that my life really started then. Because everything my dad had told me that I sometimes did, sometimes didn't, at that point, it was all real. Yeah. And you're no sicker the day after a diagnosis than you are the day before of anything, but you feel different. Yeah. And I didn't know if positive thinking was going to work all the time, but I learned quickly negative thinking does work, and it works all the time, and it fucks you up. Yeah. And so at that point, I got it. So one of the
crazy.
things
that's crazy. Think about that.
Think about
like you had this foundation. Right. You kind of, just like any young person would, you're kind of like, yeah, I get it, Mom. Stop with your affirmations. I'm tired. Yes. And then all of a sudden it just takes something to really rock you. And you're like, well, shit. Right. Maybe there's something to all that.
Well, I mean, I knew in a second there absolutely was. Yeah. And I had to drop out of college and everything in my life changed. But 5 months later, I was fine. I had to take a year off of sports, which I took advantage to do theater and music and other things. Get back to skateboarding. I'd go down to Venice a lot, and that was sort of a hidden side of me that people didn't know out in college because I was more of your traditional athlete.
Yeah.
But I'd grown up in that world.
So what ended up being wrong?
So I had kind of multiple things. I had ulcerative colitis.
Yeah.
I had shingles.
Yeah.
And the first and second opinion both thought I had cancer. A third opinion thought it was inconclusive. So they put me on steroids.
Jesus.
And then they brought me back in 5 months later, and I still had the shingles was gone. I still had the colitis, but the cancer was gone.
Jesus.
So
Jesus. Okay, so then did that, because we kind of, it was my fault for not following the story right, but we kind of went all the way to IMG Academy
and then went
back
backwards.
to that, right? So at 18, you have this scare.
Yes.
It wakes you up to, shit, maybe my parents were on to something. And then then when you found out you didn't have cancer,
yeah,
that's what sent you on the journey of coaching and teaching and stuff like that? And were you subtly through that process starting to practice and explore mindset stuff? And like, how did it go from finding out you don't have cancer to the IMG Academy and that second moment where
Good
you're
question.
like, ooh, that's what I want to do? Because it sounds like even though you accepted that it was real, you still didn't feel as attached to it as you did that day at IMG Academy hearing that guy speak.
Correct. So so much of people who live today in 2019 measure themselves by who they think they're not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're so caught up in I'm not this, I'm not that. And I think I was no different than that in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if people just learn to use what they have and measure ourselves, I mean, what makes Russell Wilson great? He knows he's not 6'4", he's 5'10".
Yeah.
But he's accountable to himself and his talent and his gifts. I think all that happened at that point was I knew in my mind I was going to get more out of what I had than I had been getting up until that point.
Yeah.
I was going to hold myself accountable to myself to be the best I could be. And up until that point, I was all over the place.
Yeah.
I was functional, but not exceptional.
Yeah.
And exceptional, and all I wanted to be exceptional was to myself. So I graduated. I didn't know I wanted to teach or I wanted to be I didn't know any of that stuff. And I didn't know I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a pro soccer player, truthfully.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? The body broke down, and then, the early origins of MLS was a kind of a tough area for a lot of people to navigate. And you're living in like a fucking place in Pasadena, and you have 3 dudes in there, and everybody's got a lawn chair. And, it's like, but it was fun, in all those early leagues. But
that's what set you on
it set me on being the best version of me.
Yeah. It made you hungry.
It made me hungry, and it made me accountable.
Yeah.
Like one thing we'll take people through, but nobody's going to influence Drama's life.
Yeah.
Like Drama's going to influence Drama's life.
Yeah.
And that's what it took for me to get that.
Yeah, because I feel like especially when you're young, and a lot of people at all times, and me even when I'm not focused, you're waiting for someone else,
right,
to tell you what to do, or to tell you that's good or bad, or to tell you, you know what I'm saying,
or give
than
you an excuse, or excuse yourself to yourself.
Yeah,
and so I'm at that school, and I got all these kids from Phillips Academy, and all these kids that are smarter than me, and I was intimidated. And up until that point, I was fucking up in school.
Yeah.
Which was unusual, but I wasn't doing the things that allow you to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally just hit the reset button and said, all right, man, what does a good student do? I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And I started getting behind behaviors. And look, before you can ever teach or educate other people, you have to have lived it, the adversity and the failure. And the first thing I want people to understand, I don't own a fucking island like Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
I can't do 16,000 pull-ups like David Goggins.
Yeah.
I struggle with all this stuff from 18 years old to now, like everybody else does. Yeah. But I do, like when people say, well, would your dad be proud of you? My dad would be most proud that I live what he taught. Yeah. Not that whatever I was doing, if I was a firefighter, if I'm a strategic advisor in and around the mindset space, whatever you fucking call this job is that nobody seems to have. And I'm one of a few that sort of has one. Yeah. But I think that's it. And when I got to Bradenton, it was like, the magnifying glass, and then just all of a sudden the light, like that's it.
Yep. So that's what happened. So you were there, at IMG Academy, is it all different sports?
All different sports,
that's
7
amazing.
sports.
Amazing. So you're there, you hear this sports psychologist talking, and you're like, bam, that's the thing. That's the perfect combination of where I came from, everything I've learned in the meantime,
Yeah.
my love for sports,
Yep.
whatever. Okay, so then what did that look like? What did you
Yeah.
start to study? What did you start to become a master at from that day forward?
So because of the way I was raised, like truthfully, I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of influencers and people out there that would have more intellectual aptitude than I do. But in this particular area, I was weaponized by my father like I'm, like fucking Superman in this area in terms of what I learned.
Yeah.
Whether it was osmotically put in through tapes and different types of things. Like, it was amazing how much I knew. I wish I would have known that in organic chemistry, then I could have been a doctor.
Yeah.
Right. But I did have a high level of aptitude in this area. For problem solving, for understanding how to help people get better. As a soccer player, as a basketball player, every leadership award I won, I could get the most out of other people. And that was, I think, a lot of how I was raised. And I learned how to develop an ad campaign, right? So much of life is how we market to ourselves. I mean, Wyden Kennedy ran Nike's marketing campaign in 1988, which ultimately Ben Wyden came up with Just Do It, and it was almost an $8 billion bump in 18 months. Yeah. And we do that for ourselves, right? We are our marketing campaign. So I understood all that. And when I got to Bradenton, it was just like, man, this is where I need to be. I wrote a bunch of letters to the guy. I didn't have, I had a master's in education, but I hadn't come through any sports psychology, never taken any classes. Yeah. So I had to show him that I'd be of value. I got my dad to fly in. We went up and met with him, and he got an internship. Yeah. So I went and started with the internship. I'm with 8 other interns at this academy. And a lot of times you're just babysitting kids in the summer, thousands of kids. Mm-hmm. And what I could tell with the other interns is they were bright and they were smart, but they weren't trying to get a fucking job. Yeah. I wanted a job. Yeah. Right? And that probably was similar to how when you first came out here with Rob, and you were like, I want a job. For sure. So what gets me a job? Well, they had these $300 packages that if you could get, you do these 1-hour group sessions with these kids or these adults, and if there was an opportunity at the end to sell and get people to buy. Yeah. Well, the first week I sold like 20. And all these other people are like, well, no, we're supposed to deliver on activation theory. And I'm like, fuck activation theory, man. I want a job. Yeah. So I started convincing people. And then literally the people came to me like, hey, bro, stop selling. We don't have enough. But then I started to realize because the volume was so high, I started to get to work with athletes one-on-one. Yep. Yep. And then, 2 weeks into it, I get offered a job. Now, this is the crazy part. I get offered a job, but I'd signed my teaching contract to go back down to South Florida and teach. Yeah. I called my dad and I said, this is my dream job. And he said, well, son, you signed a contract. And I said, yeah, for $28,000. Uh-huh. And he said, but you signed a contract. And I said, well, this is my dream job. Like, there's no jobs like this. And he said, well, look, I'm not telling you what to do, but there's a right thing to do. Yeah. And I remember just going like, fuck. Like, damn it, Dad. Why you got to be so good at this shit? And so he just straight Yoda'd me. And so my girlfriend at the time, she was like, well, what do you want to do? And I just said, he's right. I can't leave the school. It's July. I can't. Mm-hmm. I'm, assistant department chair in social sciences and stuff. So I went back there. It was the most miserable time in my life because my brain was already in another part of Florida. Yeah. But I met Chris Everett and John Everett, and I found ways to be useful. So there was a Chris Everett Tennis Academy in Boca Raton. Uh-huh. So I worked there, volunteered twice a week, and started teaching classes. Uh-huh. So I would be more prepared when I got to Bradenton. Yeah. Long story short, I get to Bradenton, I start, and there's 3 of us in the sports psychology department. And you're just working with athletes and kids. And really, you're teaching basic principles about the fundamentals of thinking, how our mind works, how we process information, how the outside influences us, how we influence us. Mm-hmm. And then I just really started to learn, okay, you're teaching 10 hours a day, right? To 100 kids from Venezuela, 8 CEOs from MGM Studios, 25 tennis players, Maria Sharapova, Kornikova's on her way out. Then you're getting then you're getting Jeter coming down in the off season. I mean, and everybody's almost agnostically the same. Yeah. It's just how do I make them better? And I knew right there, Drama, like in 2001, this is my NFL. Yeah. I'm either going to make it or I'm not going to make it. Yeah. And if I make it, we'll see what that looks like. And if I don't, then I know I can teach. Yeah.
And how do you, during that time frame, Where are you learning from? Like, are you reading like studies and reading, like, where does the information come to you from about all this stuff that you now know?
Yeah. So it was interesting. I think I learned a lot from my partner, who now is the director of mental conditioning for the Yankees and the Cowboys. But I learned so much from Nick Bollettieri, from Patrick Rafter, from Michael Johnson, from Derek Jeter, from Cade McNown, from Tim Couch, from Peyton Manning, from like everything was a utilitarian or practical, because nobody had used the sports psychology department before.
Yeah.
So Jim Lair had been there and he was famous, but he did research and he worked with athletes and things. But like Chad and I were like, we want to fucking make a difference, man. Yeah. We want to help these guys. So then we started, okay, we got 20 guys coming down to get ready for the NFL draft. They're doing this training to run for the 40, but how can we help them too? Because there's a day of just psychological testing.
Yeah.
Well, they take a Wonderlic. So we develop relationships with the agents and say, we can prepare the guys for the Wonderlic. Then they say, all right, we'll build in 2 30-minute sessions a week where you get the best 20 college football players in the world.
Yeah.
So now my first year I get Breeze, I get LaDainian Tomlinson, I get Steve Hutchinson, and then IMG sends Michael Johnson, the best sprinter in the world, to come talk to them. I got to go pick him up at the airport.
Yeah.
And well, shit, relationships, I can do that stuff.
Yeah.
And I have like the ultimate humility. Need me to drive a bus? Cool.
Yeah.
Like I'm not, I've got an education, but fuck, I want to win.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I wanted, I would call it the aggregate of marginal gains.
Yeah, I love that.
Like I needed to learn as much as I could learn. And I wasn't just learning. I was in the weight room watching our speed coaches, and I was out there watching Nick Bollettieri coach tennis.
Yeah.
Right? Nick Bollettieri's coaching Serena for an hour, and he says 4 things.
Yeah.
But when he says the 4, they're the maximum impact, where you see these young coaches screaming the whole time.
Yeah.
Right? And they become noise. So I started to see that there was a correlation between what good people did. Mm-hmm. And that if I started to understand that correlation, that I could do what good people did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I could also teach to other people aspiring to be good how to do what good people do.
Yeah.
And that was really, I started that journey and found ways. And I wasn't afraid to, Cam Newton, all right, you want to go grocery shopping at 3 a.m. at Walmart? Yeah. Fuck it, let's go.
Yeah.
And half the time I'd spend with Cam was at Walmart, and then, or we'd go walking on the beach and we'd talk. These fucking dudes don't want to sit in an office.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. My industry is to the degree that there is an industry, it's about, who you are and proving your success and showing your diplomas and all that stuff. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I believe it's about serving the people that you work for.
Yeah. Okay, so let me ask you this. This is the moment where I'm going to ask you to brag for a second, because I just want to get it. I want to understand it.
Yeah.
From coming up through those sort of ranks and learning all that information, working with these elite athletes till now.
Yeah.
Tell me, because you've also worked with like Navy SEALs, and like tell me the people that you've worked with, the different sports.
Yeah.
Run that down for me.
Yeah. So these are really, it's interesting, these questions, because it's making me think. And the toughest thing about writing this book for HarperCollins has been, and I was telling my friend as we were driving in about this today, it's weird because when I see the Vaynerchuk guy, and when I see like the Shark Tank guys, so much of what I see is like, I got to show people I'm a bad motherfucker, and then they're going to listen to me. Yeah. It's not that way in the athlete world.
Yeah, it's
they're
true,
the bad. They're the bad motherfuckers.
But that's the world you're entering.
Right.
You're entering the world where you have to. It's a tricky dance, but you have to do it because people have to know.
And it feels so wrong.
Yeah, but here I'm going to make it easy. I'm just going to ask.
Yeah. No.
Tell them all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't got to walk on stage alone.
No.
And
So you're no, and it's true. All right, and I shouldn't.
I'm gonna be like a little kid.
I'm being a little bit of a punk ass right there. So, but in 2002, essentially, after working with the draft players, Tom Coughlin hired us with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mm-hmm. That was my break in the NFL. Yeah. And then, so I did 8 seasons with the Jaguars. That would lead me to being hired by the Miami Dolphins by Nick Saban as the mental conditioning consultant for the Dolphins. Yeah. Now, there's not a lot of options when they're looking for a search. I had been in Bradenton. I'd been teaching guys for the draft. I'd been working with a lot of great athletes. So the Dolphins ultimately would open the door when Coach Saban went to Alabama to be one of the consultants for coach at Alabama.
Yeah.
That would give me he basically said, do what you think we should do in and around the mindset space.
Yeah.
So now I'm 30 and I have the opportunity to navigate, with some other really good consultants, but to help create an architecture to develop the mind at Alabama.
Yeah.
And the trust is there.
Yeah.
Because we'd been together before, and there is no efficacy for a lot of this stuff. Like the efficacy is fucking winning.
Yeah.
Right? That's the efficacy. I mean, I was talking to these people at Goldman Sachs, and we'd like to integrate it, but where's your white paper? I'm like, my white paper? Look at a fucking ring, man.
Yeah.
Because I can show you those.
Yeah.
Right? I don't have time for the white paper. I'll go back and do the white paper, but a lot of what we've been doing has been solving problems, because in the pro sports, where the higher you get, the opponents change, but the standard doesn't.
Yeah.
Two things matter right now, Drama: winning and change.
Yeah.
So if you're not winning, they're changing your ass.
Yeah.
So a mental conditioning element is about helping you win right now.
Yeah.
So as I did that and I got to Alabama, then I added Florida State University. Jimbo Fisher had worked under Nick Saban, so I had a chance to help build out that architecture at Florida State when Bobby Bowden had moved on.
Yeah.
Now, Naval Special Warfare, after seeing the success of Alabama to the 2009 National Championship, held a best practice meeting where they brought in Dan Coyle, the author of The Talent Code.
Yeah.
They brought in all the guys from Red Bull, Andy Walsh.
Yeah.
And they asked myself, as a representative of both IMG Academy and the University of Alabama football program, to come in for a 3-day event where they would give us a series of problems that they were dealing with within the special warfare community.
Yeah.
This was particularly SEAL teams 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9
Yeah.
on the West Coast. And then ultimately we would be asked to answer all these questions. And the SEAL community understands that you don't need to be sick to get better.
Yeah.
Right? The quality standard's high, so everything's about getting better.
Yeah.
And that's what I think people don't understand. Why would Russell Wilson need help? Because look what he's facing. Look at the challenges. He's facing a 6'6" dude that runs a 4'4".
Yeah.
Like his margin for error is 0.
Yeah.
So I get into that community, and then ultimately I build relationships with the captain of SEAL Team 5, and he says, hey, man, how can we stay involved? I bring him into Alabama. I bring him into Florida State. He brings me back into that community. We start doing a lot of education. That opens up opportunities at Fort Bragg for me.
Yeah.
And then the one thing, like, I may not be as consumer-facing as a lot of these other influencers, but I know how to fucking do the job.
Yeah.
Like, you can't survive in the world I live in where there's not a lot of people like me unless you can do it.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing I would say I'm most proud of as I enter this space, because as I get people say, you were there. So, I mean, it's been 11 number 1 draft picks I've worked with over the years, from Cam to Clowney to Eli, Manning. And then Russell Wilson was one of 36 athletes getting ready for the NFL draft. So I've worked with about 700 to help get them ready for the draft. And when I met him, the first 10 minutes, you're like, is this dude for real? Like, this guy's like Obama, right? And then, but he was for real. And he said, look, I knew you helped get Drew Brees ready. I want to do everything that he did. I studied you. I want you to make me better.
Yeah.
And so he would come sit in all the time. And then I became a part of his training process.
Yeah.
You know how you have people in your life that are, think about the role like this. You're driving down the road and you see a speed limit sign that says 65. That does influence you, and you need to know the rule and you need to know the law. But when the digital sign's put on top that says drama, you're going 88.
Yeah.
Like, that's where the real behavior change happens.
Yeah.
And we need people in our lives that can say, hey, man, slow down.
Yeah.
Hey, man, speed up. And that's what I've been in a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
I've been that, it's called a feedback loop.
Yeah.
I've been that feedback loop. So Russell, and then, and then when Kirby Smart, the head coach at Georgia, left Alabama, went to Georgia, I went with him. And I think what was cool is at Alabama in the beginning, we weren't good and we became great.
Yeah.
At Florida State, we weren't good and we became great. And at Georgia, we're on that mission now to becoming great. And man, there's probably a lot of others.
Yeah.
But it's been
good.
a cool world to live in. I appreciate you asking the questions, but
I'm
I feel equipped to help.
I'm going to teach you how to brag.
I probably just sucked at bragging.
No, you did good. I'm just saying it's a skill.
It feels wrong.
It's a skill that's hard. It's difficult because it's so easy to come off arrogant.
Yeah, I'm
but
like
it's
sweating.
also
I got like a
necessary.
hot sweat right now. I'm like,
That's what I love about people like you, man, is you just genuinely do not like to do it. Okay, I think this is a good time to tell the
story. Yeah.
And I want to preface by saying you told this at the dinner. At the dinner, you spoke for 5 minutes, but this I was like, no way. And I went and told everyone the rest of the week.
Yeah.
And then I called you back yesterday. I'm like, bro, was that story real? Because I've been telling it all week.
Right.
And I think the reason why it's so good to tell is it's the epitome, in a very understandable, entertaining way, why mindset is so important.
Right.
Give it to us.
Well, this focuses on this idea of something called the Pygmalion effect. And so the Pygmalion effect is very real, right? So as it was told to me by my dad, and there's a speaker series that anybody on this podcast could get involved with called Toastmasters. And Toastmasters is an international group that there's a Toastmasters LA, there's a Toastmasters Arizona, where you can, sign up and be a part of local groups and you work on speaking. Not improv, but kind of like that. And it's a professional speaking group. Then they have national events. Well, my dad, had a chance to hear one of the top magazine entrepreneurs tell a story at an international Toastmasters event. And he would share the story with me as a really kind of two pivotal moments that really jump out at me in my life to understand the power of our own behavior. Yeah. So this guy was a high school student who was a fuck up, right? And he was struggling and he was about to get kicked out of high school. So if you could do it wrong, he was doing it. Yeah. But in the 80s, there was a test, and a lot of people would know it, called the SAT. And the SAT, it's been modified since, but back then it had two parts, math and verbal, 800 points. He promised his mom he would take the test. Okay, so he takes the test. He expects nothing, but he takes it for his mom. Yeah. And he takes it in May, gets his score back in June, and to the surprise of everybody, he gets a 1480 out of 1600. So his mother, as I shared with you, doing what any mother would do, she said, did you cheat? Right? Because she knows her son and he must have cheated because the score isn't in alignment with who he was. Yeah. Or in psychological terms, it would be called cognitive dissonance, right? Where you see an outcome that's different than who you think you are. Yeah. He said he tried to cheat, right? But the spacing of the chairs was too much. The numbers were too small on the number 2 pencil that he literally took the test. She said, you mean to tell me you're that smart? He said, all I can tell you is I took the test. So he's fucked up, but he also recognizes like, oh, I might be smart. Yeah. So now he's weaponized in a different way. So because he thinks he's smart, he says, because I'm smart, I'm going to go to class as a senior. He's still enrolled. Well, now he goes to class. He doesn't hang out with who he used to when he didn't go to class.
Yeah, the dumb kids, because now he's a smart kid.
Right?
Yeah.
And so teachers see him and said, you know what, maybe we missed the boat on him.
Yeah.
Right? So he graduates, goes to a community college, goes on to a 4-year, and then ultimately goes on to the Ivy League. And as the story is told, becomes one of the top most successful magazine entrepreneurs. So you hear like, okay, well, obviously he had the gifts. He just had never unlocked them. And this test just caught him on a good day and he got behind the real gifts he had. And he says, no, that's not the story. He said, the story starts 12 years later. I get a letter in the mail from Princeton, New Jersey. Don't think anything about it. And next day, his wife says, you're going to open it. He opens it. Well, it turns out the SAT board, which is true, which happens every year, reviews their test-taking procedures and policies. The year he took the test, he was one of 13 people, sent the wrong SAT score. Yeah. The actual score was a 740 out of 1600. And as my dad would say, the whole crowd gasps, right? The whole crowd gasps. And he says, people want to say it's the 1480 that changed my life. When in true, acting like a 1480 is what changed my life. And what does a 1480 do? They go to class. Yeah. So,
damn it, that's good.
What it tells people is that your behavior, not your aptitude, defines you. Yeah. And what we think our aptitude is shapes our behavior. Yeah. So what is unique about Russell Wilson is that although other people have said, because you're 5'10", you should be a mailman, or you should be a shortstop, or you should be this, or you should be that. The truth is, when you study influence, right, where does the real influence in our life comes from? Well, You ever find over the course of a day, like you have a voice running through your mind drama, like not out loud, but in your mind,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah, like not in like a schizophrenic way, but like yeah.
But just in your mind. And if I'm in a room here with, if I'm in a room with 1,000 people, I was just with 1,000 high school kids 3 days ago for Russell's agent at the South Florida Sports Awards. Half the hands go up, half of them don't. The hands that don't go up say, I don't know, do I have a voice? While they're asking themselves if they have a voice, which they fucking obviously must have a voice, right? So when you think about influence, we all have this voice. And there was a company out of San Francisco that said it could be 800 to 1,400 words a minute. At a subconscious level, we're talking to ourselves.
Yeah, Jesus.
We're judging ourselves. Okay, so we have that voice. Now, right now what we're going through is the fundamentals of thinking. And I don't think enough people get this. I think everybody gets, hey, fucking go meditate. But we need to start here.
Yeah.
All right? So we have this voice. All right? Now, at any given moment, while we have this voice, we can only sustain one thought at a time. So when I get a chance to meet with your group, I'm going to put them through some of the exercises we do every week in the off season when we're training Georgia or we're getting ready to get guys ready, because concentration fundamentally is the game-changing skill in your life.
Yeah.
When you can think about the right thing at the right time, or as the SAT story tells you, when you can get behind the kind of behaviors through your mind, through concentrating on them, that are going to give you a chance to make it, whatever that is. So you can only think about one thing at a time. So when you're thinking about dropping in and you're focusing on where you want to go, I can only sustain one thought. Even though I have 1,000 thoughts, I can only sustain one thought at a time. So as my mind's looking at that drop in, or it's thinking about, where the vertical, or what specifically I'm going to do, or where I'm going to plant my right foot, at that moment, everything else is blocked out. Okay? So there's no such thing as blocking things out. When you think a thought, everything gets blocked out. Okay? So that's called the law of substitution. Now, we have these internal thoughts. When we isolate the thoughts, we think about one thing. That's the optimal level of concentration. Can other people influence your thoughts?
Yeah.
Of course.
Big time.
Big time, right? So when we first would get to a place like Alabama, Florida State, or Georgia, we want to know influence. Like, if there's only 10 coaches and there's 120 athletes, who has the most fucking power, right? Because if coaches are only lasting 12 to 24 months and winning and change are the only standard, then we have to do not what's best for them, what's best for winning, so we keep our jobs, right? And that's how every decision gets made, but it can also be best for them, right? So where does that influence come? Okay, so if you're looking at me or judging me, or the media is talking to me, or it can influence you, of course. So think about the NFL. It's a $14 billion league. $11 billion comes from advertising. And why do companies spend billions of dollars on advertising? Why would you go with who was the first investing athlete? It wasn't Lil Wayne. It was
Meek Mill was the first.
Meek Mill.
Yeah.
You invested in someone like Meek Mill, who became, right, because it works. All right. So if I download This Is Us, like I'm dating myself, people are gonna be like, that dude fucking watches This Is Us, right? That girl, Melanie Liburd, Judas, she's decent, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. See that?
I might have
thoughts.
We might have
the thoughts.
We might have
head.
a DM story there of a DM not working.
There you go. That's it'd be a good exercise.
But if I download it, even though it's 60 minutes on NBC, it's only 43 minutes because the other 17 minutes are commercials. Right? I can tell you 2 beef patty, special sauce, out of cheese pickles on a sesame seed bun, that I deserve a break today and it's Mac tonight. I don't want to know any of what I just fucking said. But McDonald's did such a good job that I'll be driving down. I live in Scottsdale and here in Manhattan Beach. I'll be driving down the freeway and the Golden Arches become the fucking Death Star. And like pulling me in to order them. Because advertising works. But how important is outside advertising to inside advertising? As we studied it, outside advertising is 1/10 as powerful as our inside advertising.
Got it. So what's coming from the outside is 1/10 as powerful as what you're saying to yourself.
So
already.
I'm 10 times more powerful. So that voice inside me is 10 times more powerful. So what we want.
But the 1/10 can affect the.
It can affect you.
Okay.
It can market to you.
Yep.
But the real strength comes from how you market to you.
Got it.
And we want everybody to understand that, because if 120 players are sitting in a room and we're starting a new program in Athens, Georgia. Okay. Then if you're successful, because you fucking made yourself successful, and you're in this room and you're not, it's because you made yourself. You can't blame it on your sociology, your family, your background, the shitty teacher, the bad employees you work with, the assholes that are around you, or the great people. If you're performing great, the great nurturing, you made the decisions. You may have had help. You may have had a digital sign telling you to slow down or speed up, but you did it. Now, that inside voice, this is what I want everybody to understand. That inside voice for every athlete, I don't care if it's before a Super Bowl, before an Olympics, before a Grand Slam, and I've been with these people before all those events. Yeah. It's fucked up for everybody.
Yeah, that's what I think is so interesting. Because when I look at those people on TV, I just think they're different from us.
They're not.
And they don't get nervous.
Right.
And they just have like elite sort of genes and that's
superhero DNA.
Yeah. And you're saying no.
Not at all. Like they're definitely and in these moments. So this is what I really want to get out today, because this, I hope, and I know in listening to the other ones that you've done, like this is about how people respond. And there are certain truths that if people don't listen to them, well, then they're just fucking denying the truth, because it's true, whether they believe it or not. But this is the reality. When I say it out loud, it's 10 times more powerful than when I think it. Yeah. And if it's negative, according to Christine Porath from the Harvard Business Review, it could be a multiple of 7 times more powerful than positive.
Jeez.
So if I say something out loud.
So positive or negative, it's 10 times.
Yes.
Negative and add another 7 times.
A multiple of 7.
Jesus.
So if it comes out of your mouth, like you driving down the freeway and you say it's going to be another one of these days, you could have increased the factor that that's true by 70 times.
Well, that'll be the last time I do that.
But this is what we want people to understand. Okay, so what did we focus on? So what I learned early on was nobody wants to be told to be positive.
Yeah.
It's a fucking hard jump for people. Right? I've gone through, I had the worst year of my life, at the same time having some of the best things in my life. So people were trying to tell me to be positive. You know, my mindset was go play in traffic, asshole.
Yeah.
You know, like, and that's how I felt.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's what turns a lot of people off too from this type of stuff.
Yes.
Is when it's like, man, like everything sucks right now. And for some people, for a lot of people, it really, really does.
It does.
And so to say, no, just be positive. You're
right.
Like, fuck off.
You are.
Yeah.
And athletes, like, look, man, like I've won some, Sports Illustrated's Best Brain Trainer and all these things. But I'm going to tell you this. Every time I start with a new team, and I have one in Major League Baseball, I have one in the NBA, every time I get in front of these dudes, right? Like my first time kicking off with a Major League Baseball team, 78 dudes, all the ownership, they'll be like, fuck this dude. That's my starting point. Like I'm always like, what's the difference between you and Tony Robbins? People who Tony Robbins is talking to, they want to be helped.
Yeah.
Athletes, they're already the best in the world.
Yeah.
So I have to prove the value proposition.
How do you do that? Because that is one of my big things on this podcast is trying to, I mean, the last thing I ever want to do is be the like preachy dude that's like, trust me, just follow. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't ever want to be that guy, but I do. I notice the value here, and I just want so badly to translate it in a way that maybe gets people to pick up on it that hadn't previously. So being the fact that I can only imagine walking into a locker room with a bunch of really, really talented young people, that's the perfect recipe for like, don't tell me shit.
Correct.
So what do you do?
Yeah. So what people will universally accept is that negative thinking is not good for them. And all the data around the Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, it all says it. So you flood that zone, right, with visual, right? This is the most visual generation. Right now we have Generation Z, right, born after 97, which I'm dealing with, and certainly Generation Y, the millennials. But it's so you make it clear so the information is not debatable. Positive is at best anecdotal. It doesn't mean it's not real, but it's anecdotal, right? Hey, man, I went to that bar and I went there 3 straight nights in a row and fucking nothing happened, man, right? So, and not everybody has the experience that I have. Like I can look at positive and negative as a risk calculation because of what I've faced in my life and say, I'm not going down that road. I'd rather aim high and miss than aim low and hit. But a lot of people are like, no, man, I'm aiming high. Like I always fail. So I'm going to stay here because at least I'm hitting. So, and I get that. So what you've got to do is you flood the zone and there are stories and examples. I open up, I show a Bill Buckner clip. Bill Buckner, for those who don't know, he was a legendary baseball player for the Boston Red Sox. And he has a famous blooper where in the 1986 World Series, he lets a run score on a ground, goes through his legs, and the Mets score, and then they ultimately go on to win the series. So, and it's a famous blooper. Now, Boston has since had success. But I show an interview that was resurfaced in 1995 that he did 12 days before the World Series.
Yeah.
And he says, I don't want to be the guy that lets the game-winning run score on a ground ball through my legs.
He said that?
He says it.
See,
and
70 times. Why don't you multiply that by 70, asshole?
Right. And then, but think about that, and I show countless examples. And then there's all sorts of stories like the SAT story. There's a story about a guy who locks himself in a refrigerated boxcar on accident in Russia. He starts panicking. He's writing down, I'm freezing. I'm slowly freezing to death. Half asleep, I can hardly write. Hours later, they open it, and he's dead. They check the freezing apparatus. It's 56 degrees. There's no physical reason for his death. The people that are listening to this study the Korean War, 1950 to 1953, the highest rate of POW fatalities. They ended up coining the reason it happened was this psychogenic or psychosclerosis phenomenon called give-up-itis, where the American POWs were filled with so much negativity and lies and propaganda about our country being bombed. All good information was withheld from them, that healthy American soldiers would walk over into a corner, sit down, and die of broken hearts.
Yeah.
So all the data around ego, I can win that debate with every audience.
Yeah. You got me.
You know what I'm saying? And,
Yeah,
and then the question is, now they know that, and they're articulating it that if an organization, the best way you can tell Y&R, Facebook, 33 North Partners, whatever, you can judge an organization by its language. And if the language has an absence of negativity, and I'm not talking about even an alternative to that, just an absence of it, right? It's 103 degrees. Not talking about it, but we're not pretending it's 65 degrees. Yeah. And if you take that away, I'm telling you, drama, your mind finds the solutions without ever being told to be positive.
Shit, man. We got it. I can't wait till you talk to my staff.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I got a few little pockets of negativity problems I'm trying to get out of there.
But they might not understand that they're even...
No, they don't.
Or
and they're good people.
Right.
They just,
But it's education.
Are multiplying 70.
Right, 77. And think about this. If you watch 30 minutes of news in the morning, we didn't even hit on that, you're 27% more likely to say your day was shitty at the end of the day.
Tell me, I love this too about... You said that the special operations people or whatever, how are they trained to watch the news?
Yeah, so in some of the environments I've been around, they understand that the news. Do you think the news understands the multiple of 7?
Oh yeah,
of course they do,
They're
right?
Cranking
they got to
it
sell.
out.
Do you think Facebook understands it? Do you think Instagram? Do you think Twitter? I mean, of course they understand it, right? And it's their job to sell ads and make money.
Yep.
It's our job not to be a dumb fucking consumer.
Yeah.
It's our job.
Yeah, it is.
Right? So again, as an athlete, what makes a great athlete? A lot of times it's what they don't do. It's what they don't watch. It's what they don't say. And we can all not do things.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not coming here with a mission, and I respect people's right to do whatever they want to do. And I respect everybody's right on their path to greatness. But in my experience, average people become average because of average behaviors, not average aptitude.
Yeah.
That's my experience. Okay.
And I just love that we're telling people, don't turn off this podcast and go do something.
Right.
How about turn off this podcast and just go not do something?
Just go not do something.
Just don't say negative shit out loud.
Right.
And how do I watch the news? Tell me that.
Well, so what we learned, what I learned was there was a unique group of highly talented operators, we'll say, that were educated. This is what cable news is designed to do. Mm-hmm. And this is how this news group leans. This is how this news group leans. This is how this news group leans. If you want agnostic information, your best chance is the BBC.
Yeah.
But if you want to watch it like you're watching House of Cards, then have fun and watch it. Yeah. But be an educated consumer.
And do they have like a time limit on it?
Well, it's just, you got to respect people's right to consume what they want to consume, but they just have to know. Yep. Right? Country music. Like my dad, we couldn't say the word can't in the house. We couldn't listen to country music. We couldn't watch the news.
Really?
Right.
And country music is so depressing?
It was like, well, first of all, when I was old enough to know, my dad showed me 100 songs that were actual titles. Like, if I'd have shot you by sooner, I'd been out of jail by now. Yeah. Like, how come all my kids look like my best friend? I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy. Yeah. Right? And I love these dudes, man, because I'm from Seattle, but as you probably can hear my voice, I don't sound much like I'm from Seattle anymore. And I've lived in the South, and I met all these dudes, man. Jake Owens at every Florida State game. Mm-hmm. And new country, I was telling my friend we were driving in, it's deceptive, really deceptive, because the chord progressions have changed to become more poppy, but it's equally fucks you up if you're going through like bad relationship stuff. Yeah. Because you're like, you listen to Chase Redd, or Marry Me, right? Or Thomas Redd, I think. And I'm listening to that song, and if you're trying to meet somebody and you're like all of a sudden chance. Oh, I didn't put the effort in with you. And now I just got your invite to your wedding because I fucked up and never tried. Right. And then
terrible.
all I want to do is just like run out and go put a weight on my leg
Call
and
your exes.
go surf with a weight on my leg.
Sorry. Yeah.
Right. And that's my fault. Right. Because it doesn't mean I can't listen to it, but I need to know when I'm listening to it if I'm in a weak state of mind.
Yeah.
Like Russell Wilson, like everything, like if you're negative, you don't live in his life. Yeah. You don't exist. And even if I'm sideways in my life, he's going to be like, hey, man, you need to go to timeout for a while. You can't be around me for a little bit.
Yeah. Damn it. Yeah.
And, you know,
That's how you win
and I've been
Super Bowls.
put in timeout by him a few times.
I need to start putting people in timeout.
Put people in.
Yeah. What'd you just say? What?
Yeah.
Timeout.
Hey, man, go to timeout.
Okay.
We'll see you in a
A
month.
couple of questions that just are coming up as you talk about it is, number one, the one thing
This is awesome, by the way, man. I'm really glad. Like, first of all, I want to go back to Frank
this is great.
for just basically Frank opening up some doors because I basically said, look, man, like I need to get out of this world. I mean, I want to go meet people. I need to challenge my comfort zone. Like I got a place on the Strand now. You know, like my friend helped me get a place on the Strand where I'm like going to be like I'm going to be in like a fish bottle or fish bowl.
Yeah.
So I love it. So thank you again for having
we
me.
got to keep it. I mean, I would do this every week if you'd let me.
Yeah.
Okay. So the one thing that I wanted to say clearly is the positive thinking stuff is kind of, I don't want to say bullshit. It's kind of fairy tale land, right? And I think a lot of people are going to be happy to hear that. What is it called that you practice? So you said positive thinking might work, at best anecdotal, but negative definitely makes it worse.
Right.
So what do you?
And
we can
post some really good data for your people just to look at that. And I don't think anybody's going to debate that.
Yeah. So what do you call it? What do you say? Like, hey guys, just.
Yeah, so right, you can't just not do your way into greatness, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to eventually do
just
something.
do nothing.
Right? So I get that. And success is not a stagnant process. Mm-hmm. But what we did was we kind of came up with an idea sort of kind of out of the Taoist world, but when you think of a car, right? It has forward and it has backwards.
Yeah.
But it also has a middle point where you got to go to neutral.
Yeah.
So the idea of neutral is basically a recognition that whatever happened.
Yeah.
So, but if you recognize, so right now in 2019, negativity has become synonymous with realism.
Yeah.
Hey, bro, I'm just being real. Keeping it real, dog. Right? I'm just keeping it real. Hey, man, this is our fucking, look at our president's Twitter and all this different stuff. Like, I'm just being real, bro. But the problem is if you're being real and it's negative, and it's that powerful, if you accept the data of how powerful it is, then it immediately catastrophizes and ruins your next moment.
Yeah.
All right? Now, if it's positive and something's going really well in our life, we're meeting good people, everything's going really well, like the only momentum is determined by what we do next. There's no real momentum just because what was done was good. Mm-hmm. It's like a game. You're up 14 points. You got to score more because they can score points, right? Your opponent has the opportunity to be great that you have.
Yep.
So if you don't do it and they do it, you're going to lose.
Yep.
Right? So this idea of neutral is a non-judgmental, behavior-based thinking.
Yep.
So it accepts the past, good or bad. But even the most negative motherfuckers that exist on the planet have to acknowledge that the future has not happened yet.
Yep.
It hasn't. And I will go head-to-head with all of them. And okay, Rick, tell me what happens tomorrow because it hasn't happened yet to me.
Yep.
You tell me because it might be different.
Yeah.
And you can win with a really cynical crowd with the idea of, okay, I can accept it, but I can influence what happens next.
Yep.
And we may be down 28-3 in the Super Bowl with 7 minutes to go in the third quarter. So my thinking doesn't become about an outcome, which positive thinking is associated with an outcome, winning.
Yeah.
Okay. Behavior-based thinking is we're going to get the ball. Like Brady says, if your people go listen to him mic'd up, how about we start fighting? Yeah. How about we start competing? How about you start playing with some heart? How about you get your pad level down and strike some, and you start thinking about the behavior that will change the outcome.
Yeah.
And so maybe we don't win, but we start to change the trajectory. They get it to 28-28. They ultimately win in overtime.
Yeah.
Right? So, and there's so many examples. Russell Wilson is one of the best neutral thinkers before he ever met me. Yeah. But we practice it. So we have a very clear, so everybody says, well, what about goals and how do goals relate to the way you're thinking? Michael Johnson told me the best thing, man. He was talking to this group with LaDainian and Freddie Mitchell and Drew Brees and Chris Winkie and all these guys. And one of them asked him, hey, you set goals? And he said, yeah. And he said, well, did you learn them in school, like SMART goals, specific, measurable? And Michael's like, you really want to know? He said, yeah. And he's like, you ever been to Safeway? The guy's like, yeah, of course I've been to Safeway. You ever gone into Safeway without a list written down? He said, yeah. He said, how does that fucking work for you? Right?
It's a mess.
And it's a mess, right? You're in aisle 8 and you have this crippling anxiety as you're looking at the Wheat Thins and you're looking at the Twinkies and you're like, I don't think either of these are on the list, but I don't even have one.
Yeah, you just walk out with candy and like
you walk out with a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, if I'm going to write things down to be successful in Safeway, why wouldn't I do that in my career?
Yeah.
Right? So he had 4 things written down in the biggest moment, 3 billion people watching, 100,000 people wearing the gold shoes, head down, pump my arms, explode. I'm a bullet. Those are neutral drama. Mm-hmm. Those are behaviors. Yeah. Not I'm going to run 19.3.
Yeah.
Not I'm going to, right? So anybody can behave. And this is the thing. If I'm listening right now and I'm 50 pounds over my ideal weight, mm-hmm. right? Because there's no such thing as overweight. If you're okay with it, then you're not overweight.
Yeah.
You're you.
Yeah.
Okay. But if I'm over what I want to be, then I can behave my way into beginning to change.
Yeah.
Right? If so many of us are determined by our feelings and emotions, and that's where music and TV and all that stuff fucks us up, right? But if my behaviors guide my life, right? I heard a great story that one of these consultants told, and it was about, this kid being 11 years old, and his dad walking out of the house and saying, hey, mow the lawn if you feel like it. And the kid's watching TV, and he doesn't do shit. And 3 minutes later, the dad comes in and says, hey, make sure you feel like it. Right? And that's, you can feel like doing anything.
Yeah.
Right? So this is what I want people to understand. So we teach neutral thinking.
Yeah.
So we believe the efficacy around neutral thinking is process orientation, task orientation. But basically, if I focus on the law of substitution says if I think about what I should do next, my mind will move there. And if my mind moves there, then my behaviors will follow.
Yeah.
Right? If I wait to feel like it, I may never do it. It's like if you go to school and I'm only going to work for the teachers I like. Well, then you're going to be on the Chris Farley plan.
Yeah.
It's
so good. It's just like, because that's one of the other things that I'm so fascinated too, because you've taken kind of these things and learned how to teach them. Obviously, you're a teacher and you've worked with all these people for all this time, but like, it's the same thing everyone always says, that like the hardest part about going to the gym is putting on your workout clothes.
Right.
Like once you're actually there, the rest is easy. It is
right.
every time. And you feel so good when it's over.
Right.
But finding that way to jump into the workout or going for a run or grabbing this food instead of that food or whatever, like mastering that moment. Let me just speak for myself. I have learned that I have a list of what I hope tomorrow looks like for me every day. By the time I go to bed, my calendar is set. My to-do list is set. This is I hope tomorrow this is all finished. Some days it is, some days it isn't. But what I have learned is truly the difference for me, which I know is going to compound over time, and I know is going to be the difference in 10 years between me being very, very happy and neutral, is that one moment of resistance, that moment of saying, you got to just put the workout clothes on and go to the gym, or you got to just send the email, or you got to make the phone call, and whether I can push through that or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's the difference between living in if versus I,
mm-hmm.
right? So Russell Wilson's a great I example versus if. Like, if I do this, I'm doing this,
mm-hmm.
right? So not if I get up at 5 a.m. and get into the Virginia Mason Athletic Complex, I get up, right? If versus I. If gives you the opportunity to say, fuck this.
Yeah.
I says, I am doing this, right? So, and everything starts with and this is, I think, the key point. And this is, I think, I'm hoping this is who we're talking to that's listening today to your 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 million people.
Mm-hmm.
Want is the precursor for everything. Like, our parents would ask me all the time, and look at like Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman, right? I don't debate that they were trying to do what was best for their kids, right? But everything starts with wanting something. So don't underestimate if you're listening right now and you want something better, a better relationship, right? Like the average married couple speaks 27 minutes a week.
Yeah.
That's the statistics now.
Yeah.
Like, that's not fucking good, right? So there's behavior that has to happen, and it's micro behavior. It's being on the road and talking to your significant other. Instead of watching that Law and Order episode and being on Twitter, like turning the TV off, turning the lights down, putting your phone down, and giving yourself a chance to engage in a conversation. Yeah. Right? But I think I want to have a better relationship with my significant other. I want to be fit. I want tomorrow to be exactly how I want. Yeah. That matters, because what want does is want leads us to thinking, well, why don't I have it? Yeah. And when I don't have it, it starts to think about, okay, well, what's in my way? Okay, when I see what's in my way, oh my God. Okay, not I'm in my way, but I'm not getting up 4 times a week to do this. Okay, then I've identified the solution. Get up 4 times a week, do it. Yeah. Now, as I identify the solution, then what's the plan? And then as I see the plan, then we get to the title of my book. Now I know the plan. Now I know the want. Now I know the obstacles. It takes what it fucking takes. Yeah. Right?
That's the title?
That's the title. It takes what it takes.
That's good.
Right?
Not
because
fucking?
Not fucking.
You should consider putting fucking in there.
I know, but
I'm just
I know,
saying.
but it takes what it takes. And the reality is, choice is an illusion, Drama. Like, people that are sitting down here thinking that you could get to the point where you're hosting a show like this, like any way you want to, you can do anything you want unless you want to be good. Yeah. So choice is what we're weaponizing against ourselves in 2019. Yeah. There are not a lot of choices if you want to be good. So if you really if I say I want my abs to be a certain way, or I want physically to feel a different way, this is the path. I'm either going to do it or I'm not. Yeah. And I'm not going to judge the path it takes. Yeah. Right? Because I'm giving up time. No, this is what I'm getting. A great athlete thinks about what they get, not what they're giving up. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the piece. We were talking.
Would you say that, because I've found that for myself, but would you say that with all the great athletes and all of the elite performers that you've worked with, that ability to just do what needs to be done is a major differentiator? Or is it not there? Am I missing the spot?
No, I think it's a lot of things. We were talking about one of the killer things about this population, and now I'm going to a broader one, but they want more. Yeah. Of everything. Yeah. And it's the fucking coolest thing about them. Money, want more. Success, want more. Followers, want more. Fame, want more. Food, want more. Yachts, want more. Cars, want more. They fucking want more. Right? So they also understand wanting more requires doing more.
But isn't that where most of them get lost? Isn't that the difference between wanting and doing? Isn't that where you lose actually wanting and having one day?
Well,
isn't that what separates the people who are there?
Agreed.
Or will get there and will never? And will just always want?
But the people that are successful and they still want more, right? Like when Tiger was in his prime, they said, man, you've won 64 tournaments. Like, don't you just hit the snooze button? The fuck are you talking about, snooze button, man? I want more of everything.
But then I think the incredible thing about like Tiger is he's done so much and he still wants more and therefore does more. And I think if you looked at Tiger's schedule, you'd probably, probably know it. But I'm saying I would be like, shit, man, this dude, isn't there just
But it isn't. But that's the point. It isn't. Like, they're not playing tennis 24 hours a day. Right? So it's strategic in the way that you work, all right? It's in identifying the behaviors. Yep. And sometimes an athlete trying less is as powerful as trying more, recovering, regenerating, watching film. So what I'm saying about the want is powerful. Yeah. And so if there are people here that want something different, it can happen for you. Yeah. But the first thing you have to ask yourself is, why don't I have it? Yeah. And athletes ask themselves that. Yeah. Now, does success get in the way of athletes' performance? For sure. Yeah. Sometimes an athlete's adversity is their own success.
Yeah, for sure. I would imagine.
And same within the entertainment. I don't know a lot about
success.
This population, like the celebrities. I've met a few and things along those lines.
Oh, they're all in their own ways.
They're right. And it's like an emergency brake, right? You can go backwards with that fucking emergency brake on, but not forward.
Yeah, fame will get in your own way real quick.
But it doesn't have to. Yep. And that's the paradox of success. When you identify the behaviors that get it for you, And Michael Johnson told us this, like the gold shoes and everything. And he said that once you know the formula, you're beholden to it.
Yeah.
And it's okay to live in excess as long as you understand what you're sacrificing. And human nature says, can I get the same by doing less? I'm going to tell you this, no. You can't. So if somebody's listening to this and says, man, I want to take my relationship to the next level, then that means you're going to need to find a way to engage with your significant other 4 hours a week.
Yeah.
You might need a date night that's strategic.
Yeah.
Right? It may not happen organically anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Or I want to excel, on my, bowl skating or half pipe, whatever it is.
Yeah.
If I don't have it, there's a path. And I just want people to understand that path is not dictated by your gifts, by your aptitude. It's your behavior.
Yeah.
Your behavior precedes your success. Those are the stories. Are there super freaks like Cam Newton that look like fucking Transformers?
Yeah.
Of course there are.
Yeah.
Right? LeBron, of course there are. Are there people who are, that are beautiful and it comes more natural to them? Sure. But that is not what I've seen in 18 years.
Yeah.
It's a decision. It's influence. It's surrounding themselves around good people. It's isolating themselves around bad. Everybody lives in the real world. These dudes have cancer.
Yeah.
They go through divorce. They deal with coaches who are assholes.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these dudes, you're like, golly,
Yeah.
and they're not. But hey, if I'm dealing with a boss who's an asshole, I still can translate. It takes what it takes. What does my job need? What does it matter if 5 years from now I say I would have been good if he was better if I wasn't good?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a common one too, man. Because I just living in that like misery of I would have been there if is just the worst nightmare.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Even
like,
if
that's
it's true. But it's not true.
Yeah.
It's partially true, but you still have a say in how you respond to the things that happen in your life.
Yeah.
And that's what I like, not just neutral thinking, but living neutrally, which means, man, there's some life, even as I think about just some of the things I'm managing through now, it's hard.
Yeah.
Right. And I told you guys what I was dealing with, even the night I came and spoke to you guys and to be able to isolate going through this really bad experience, but giving that experience a history and life of its own, but also allowing myself to come meet 15 really cool guys that I would never normally meet, and to give that moment its opportunity to be new and have its own history.
Yep.
That's discipline.
Yeah, that's true. Why don't you think? I think if this stuff was taught in elementary, middle, and high school, it would be the most important classes. Let's just say, of all the classes once a year you had to take one of your classes, I think it would be the single most important class taken in all of schooling.
Yeah.
My personal opinion. Why don't you think it's reached that level, or it's accepted on that level, or it's like, why don't we do this? To me, it just literally feels like people haven't discovered that what you eat affects your health yet. And we're still like, well, I don't know, man. I mean, Taco Bell's great, and I just wasn't meant to be a sprinter.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, why? What are we waiting for?
I don't, and this is what I would say. Like, my dad had his Unlocking Your Potential curriculum with the ROTC and in 2,500 school districts.
Mm-hmm.
And then John Stossel from ABC 2020 did like this special on, we're giving kids too many trophies and they haven't earned it. And then it goes back to the way we're teaching it, I think.
Yeah.
If the curriculum's about I love myself, and which really matters.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you this. Like, when we started educating these college football players, they do need healthy self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
What does a healthy self-esteem means? You can handle life.
Yeah. But
you just can't call it self-esteem.
Yeah.
Right? So we built our program around case studies of greatness. Yeah. So if Drake is succeeding, what is he doing? And is he doing things that if I did them, I would be more successful? Mm-hmm. And as we studied Drake, he had, at 18 years old, he set a goal. I want to make $25 million by the time I'm 25. Mm-hmm. Does it by 23, resets the goal. I want to make $250 million by the time I'm 29. Right? So we show our players that, and they start to see, look at this person who he had to do a principle that any successful person would have to do that comes from traditional psychology. Yeah. And I could do that too. So I think the curricula that have been developed, and I think it calls on you, Frank, Alicia, myself, everybody from this planet
Yeah.
to start with a school district.
Yeah.
Because Russell and I have been saying the same things. Russell said exactly that on a recent podcast he did. Why are we studying geometry and not the fundamentals of thinking?
Yeah. It's mind blowing.
But that maybe that's part of our burden, because that's what Maria Shriver had challenged me 2 years ago. She said, take this information. If people had heard neutral thinking, they might be more open to that than being told to be positive.
For sure. Yeah, you got to do it, man. We got to get this Instagram of yours popping, and we got to get.
I learned how to log in last night, so I feel pretty exciting about that. But I was trying to figure out how to put a picture on. I couldn't do it this morning.
Well, luckily you're surrounded by the right people.
I love it, man.
Okay, let me ask you this one: you've come a long way,
Yeah.
right? You've accomplished a lot. You've worked with greatness. We see you now making the transition to trying to figure out how to post a photo on Instagram.
Yep.
To
Which I know I can.
It's
behavior.
See,
Yeah.
whatever you do, just don't say you can't.
Right. Exactly.
Writing a book.
Yep. Which has been awesome.
The book's finished.
The first draft's finished.
So now you're just going through the process.
Yep. Now we're going through the process. I got a great
out.
ghostwriter, a guy named Andy Staples from Sports Illustrated. He's like 35 covers, and HarperCollins is producing the book. And I can feel so blessed. Like I kept. It's funny this is crazy. When they first emailed me about the book inquiry, I called my friends that worked at Microsoft and asked how they came up with the HarperCollins.org email. And they're like, bro, we're 43 years old. Like, we don't do that shit. I'm like, we all do that stuff. Yeah. I literally thought it was friends punking me when I got the email. Yeah. And and then it obviously wasn't. And it's been awesome. It's the same people that did the book Shoe Dog.
Yeah.
And then they did Grover's book Relentless as well.
Yeah. That's going to be huge.
I'm excited.
You got to come back on when that comes out.
Yeah.
And literally any time in between.
No, it would be a privilege. Well, I think a lot of these things, to me, you ask the right questions, and you have, whether I'm learning more about Florida Georgia Line or whether I'm learning more about Trevor Moawad, the simple fact of the matter is there's a story behind Florida Georgia Line. There's a story behind me, and it's the aggregate of marginal gains. Like a good friend of mine who's a general manager in Major League Baseball now said that, and another friend of mine I met at Fort Bragg, this idea of marginal gains, like take a step forward, right? So because you did it yesterday you own that.
Yeah.
But if you are what you do, then when you don't, you aren't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you did it, don't do it, and you'll be something different.
Yeah.
And I think that's the opportunity in front of all of us. So I'm grateful for the friendship and the opportunity to meet people, and for Frank for getting us together, and to try to do an 11-minute talk in Koreatown in a restaurant, which is cool because I have not done that one before.
Hey, it worked. Yeah,
it was awesome.
It led to this. Many more. So where do you go from here? That's obviously kind of the book's going to come out. You're going to be an Instagram wizard. You're going to be like Gary Vee. You're going to be on there like neutral thinking.
Yeah.
Where do you take all this?
So, I have sort of two worlds now. So Russell Wilson, his older brother Harrison, and another partner DJ and Eidson and I, we started a business called Limitless Minds. And Limitless Minds is really a vehicle that's a B2C vehicle, right? To give people digital content, micro podcasts. It's not open to the consumer yet, but businesses are buying it. But it gives us a chance to scale to a mass audience. So that's exciting. Russell is a living, breathing characterization of the process.
Yep.
And now he's the highest paid football player in the history of football, which sort of defies the odds, but it doesn't surprise me. So we have Limitless Minds, which is this business. So I'm involved in that, and we have a lot of events that we're doing and corporate education programs that we're running. My company, the Moawad Consulting Group, is still really involved in sports.
Yep.
What I'm trying to do is be really strategic with the right organizations and the right teams and the right places that allow myself the ability to still have a relevance there, but to take a step and influence more people. That really came down to a point that we didn't mention, but just a couple of years ago, Maria Shriver had called me and asked me to come to LA and meet and really challenged me. She said, you have a message that's unique, but only 150 athletes are getting it. 150 million people need to hear it. Well, at the time she said that, I was like, why?
Yeah.
you know, and but it started my mind down that path, and then I realized like I don't even know how to access 1,000 people.
Yeah.
And so then I started this journey, and when you open your mind and you set a goal, you start to find the paths. You meet drama, you meet Frank, you spend time with Jordan Palmer, you meet Kobe Fuller, you meet all these different types of people. You say yes to a venture capital event or speaking to 6,000 athletes at a Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So I'm saying yes to everything.
Yeah.
That's what's happening next. I'm saying yes to things that unfortunately, or for the reasons that I think were strategic at the time, I said no to a lot of things.
Yeah.
So what happens next is a lot of yes.
Yeah. That's good.
Living out Manhattan Beach for the summer. You and I are going to go to a skate park.
Absolutely, man. I'm just going to call you randomly and be like, man, I got a problem.
Yeah.
I've been saying can't a lot lately, and I'm fucking jammed up. Can you help me?
But you know what? I love, and it's interesting. The most crazy part about this job is relevance.
Yeah.
Like, how do you determine if someone's successful? Because it's still it's a small part, but it can be big at big moments.
Yeah.
And relevance is when people are in some of the more challenging times of their lives, can they lean on you? And when they're in the best times, can they lean on you? And I think that to the degree that you can build relevance with you or with Frank or with other people or with Russell, or that's been the coolest part for me.
Yeah.
To be at halftime of a Rose Bowl and be in a situation and be part of a decision matrix that's happening in 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And to know that my field is normally designated for that left-handed pitcher throwing it to the 80th row. Go talk to this dude. Not for me.
Yeah.
I'm helping people like Drama who are really good get to your next level. And my friend Billy Donovan, the basketball coach, had the coolest statement that I've ever heard, and I think it's a great way to close it out. And he said, everyone has a next level.
Yeah. You're freaking right, man. You are in such a good spot. I told you this on the phone. You're in such a good spot because you have spent all of this time developing the real skills, the real experience, the real relationships. The Instagram part's easy, right? That's just, you're going to fine tune kind of what works on story versus on feed and what filter to use and Motivation Mondays and whatever you do. But that's the easy part. You've done the hard part. The problem in this day and age is everyone's trying to go straight to the easy part and build a following without having the substance.
Yeah.
You're going about it the right way.
Yeah.
Here's my last two big questions. This is how I end every one. First one, you can prescribe anything, like a doctor, to the entire world, and they have to do it for 30 days. What do they do?
Uplifting music.
That's good. Do you have any examples? What do you listen to?
Well, I learned a lot from Russell, so I wouldn't say I'm an overly religious person, but man, after Super Bowl the 50 with the Patriots, we were in San Diego, and every morning I'd go to pick him up, and he'd have Hillsong United, right? And I'd be like, "What is this? Are we Joy FM? Like, what's happening here?"
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, Drama, I would so we'd take him, he'd go train, but then I'd go like hiking in Rancho Santa Fe.
Yeah.
I would have 10 times the energy I'd have when I was listening to my buddy Brock Hewitt on talk radio, sports radio.
I know it's true. It just all sucks. I just wish that we'd have like a positive Drake.
Right.
Why can't somebody make really, really good music and it just happens to all be super positive?
Right.
Why do we? It's so weird.
Or just even the chord progressions, right? Like, but just something strategic.
Yeah. No, that's good. There's plenty. People can find stuff, and you can easily make a playlist of different. Got it.
Good mix.
Perfect advice. Last thing, you can. Luckily, we just got our hands on a brand new time machine.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about this time machine is
I could use this.
Yes. So you can go back to any point in your life and you can tell yourself anything. Couple sentences, right? It's your choice. Where do you go and what do you say?
I think I go back to the early origins of what was the most important female relationship in my life, and hold myself accountable for being more connected.
Yeah.
You know, I've had a real problem connecting. And I think compartmentalization is given like this hero's thing, like, oh, you can compartmentalize and focus on all these things, but the things that really mattered, I really struggled with. And it's so disappointing to because success lives on the edge, man, of adversity.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back and there's just a couple things that if I just would have been more engaged in my own life
Mm-hmm.
and not the lives of so many others. And I think you can do both.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would go back and I don't know that it would be a gentle conversation. It might be like a punch in the face
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and just say like, wake up.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know it.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know it. I thought, like it's just disappointing and it's controllable.
Yeah.
And then the things that bug you when you're like, that was completely in my control and I blew it.
Yeah, for sure. But nothing you can do. You can't go back in the past. And now you know the lesson.
You
and
move
it's going
forward.
to pay off. And you got plenty of
And
time
you learn.
to pay it off. Yep.
And you learn. And that's what I've learned. Like in talking to this, that's the best thing in my life is of all the people I've been around, I can promise you, Drama, I've learned thousands of times more from guys like Russell Wilson than them from me.
Yeah.
And I've had a front row seat
Yeah.
to some of the biggest moments in sports history
Yeah.
and saw why it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've seen the other side of it too, when you do everything right and you still lose,
Yep.
but you did it right and you can hold your head up.
Yeah. There it is. I can't thank you enough. This was incredible. You'll hear from me a lot. I'm not going to leave you alone.
Yeah. I look forward to it.
Thank you, man. Keep.
Thanks, man.
What's your Instagram page?
I have no idea.
Shout it out, Frank. You know what it is? We got to start with some followers here, man.
I think it's at Trevor Moawad, TrevorMoawad, and then Twitter's the same thing at Trevor Moawad.
There it is.
Yes, and I
Yeah,
am verified.
Friends in the right places.
which Frank is
man.
gonna,
He has-
which is cool.
That's good.
And we
Okay.
had some really cool followers too, man. This was awesome.
Yeah, we're gonna
So,
get it. We're gonna
thank
get
you.
it cracking. We're gonna teach you how to DM.
Yeah,
DM's the new way everyone's doing
DM.
business and finding love.
I love it.
So we'll teach you how to do that.
I love that. That's hilarious.
There it is. Thank you, man.
Thanks, man.
Guys, if you like that and you want to see more like it, as well as vlogs, other web series, and all the random stuff that I'm doing here on YouTube, don't forget to click that subscribe button. You won't regret it. I promise.